Hello YouTube. I want to talk about the very interesting recent event that made international news and is far from over. I did want to collect a little bit more information and news from Russia, which are not available in the West, and also check out some of the opinions of people who actually are in the area. And I'm speaking about the event that took place on 11th of December 2018 at the Bureya Dam. It's a hydroelectric dam on the Bureya River in the Russian Far East. There was a massive landfall in eastern Russia, and it was said to be caused either by a meteorite, a fallen UFO, maybe a massive bomb, maybe something else. And this is what was claimed in a number of international circulation newspaper. A large valley blocking landslide that took place on that date. It generated much interest because a number of parties ascribed this event to a meteorite impact event, but that's very unlikely. But of course the landslide dam is significant and very dangerous. What's interesting is that there were some interesting images obtained from meteorological satellite, which depict a thermal anomaly, a brief one, which took place on the 12th of December at 9:50. And there is not much information about it, but we'll get to it. Now, I need you to understand that some of the information I am reading from the notes straight from Russian, so it's simultaneous translation. Please excuse sometimes I slow down, but I do want to make sure my people who listen to my videos, those who support my research, understand what's going on. Well, the Russian government sent in their military to help with the situation. The latest we have, and this is early February, is that the military engineers blasted a rock layer at the place of the landslide on the Bureya River in the Khabarovsk region. As was reported by the Deputy Defense Minister of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Bulgakov, over 10 tons of the TNT were used to blast the rock jam. The blasting destroyed the strip between the canal and the upper layers of water, so that the water flowed into the formed canal. The order of the Russian president and the defense ministers are being successfully implemented. The Russians have connected the two so-called pools. The estimated flow of water in the formed canal is 200-250 cubic meters per second. So the first stage was completed. At the second stage, they're planning to expand the canals until the size of the original canal. The second stage is planned to be completed by February 18. Well, that's the latest news we have. The military spent 200 tons of TNT. An engineering group has made a road from Ushman to the place of rock collapse. So there are on site, they have engineers and other specialists. Since the beginning of that work, military engineers have a canal by blasting with a length of more than 100 meters and width of 35 meters. The canal is in the Bureya riverbed and it's over 19 meters deep. 2 bulldozers and an excavator were involved in all this cleaning. They paid so much attention that the work was carried out in 3 shifts. It was a complicated and still is enterprise, and much efforts are being spent. 540 people, almost 50 pieces of military and special equipment, and so forth. So what is it that we know? We know that on December 11, 2018, a rock mass collapsed in the Bureya Reservoir. With spring floods, rising water levels could result in flooding of some of settlements, railway and automobile communications, as well as the engineering structure of the Baikal-Amur main line. Now, President of Russia Vladimir Putin ordered forces and the means of the Russian Defense Ministry to clear the riverbed and carry out drilling and blasting operations in order to restore normal hydrological regime of the Bureya Reservoir. He is taking it very seriously. Now, ufologists in the area, they consider the Khabarovsk meteorite, as they call this, to be a UFO that crashed in the area. What's interesting is they mention that there is lack of any radiation which is contained in meteorites. Also, they're saying that the explosive wave could have been caused by the extraterrestrial ship explosion. Some people say, those who have actually witnessed what's going on, that not long before the event in some areas, not long after the event took place, in some areas they could see smoke rising from the ruins, and there was very acrid chemical smell. Now let's remember, that's interesting, because I want to mention something else soon. According to the locals, they could see that the rocks in the newly formed cover, so to say, the rocks were very warm, and the icy edges were very thin, as if they were in boiling water. What's interesting, again, that the data from satellites show that the hillside, remnants of the hillside, were enveloped, so to say, in strong thermal heat that came out from at that time. The ufologists actually are looking for the remnants of the ship and bodies of aliens, of course, and they think that just a meteorite could not get this area heated up so much, destroy the hillside, and cause the explosion. It just could not do it, according to them. Actually, some scientists confirmed them, because they say, according to them, it wasn't a meteorite, but maybe some flying vessel, a ship, flying ship that could have exploded, maybe even a bomb. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. And again, as I said before, the satellite, it was actually a Japanese satellite, Himawari 8, found quick or short-lived thermal anomaly in the area. And after this thermal anomaly, the landscape changed, and the cone-shaped hill and the vegetation around changed completely. So what was this short-lived thermal anomaly? Well, some people immediately think about an explosion, and if it wasn't a meteorite and not a volcano that was about to explode, and they say seismologists would have known it, so it had to be technically born explosion, probably incidental one. Some people think that it was maybe a stage of a rocket that fell down, but for the destruction that took place, the weight of this rocket, spent rocket, is too small, so it wouldn't be the cause of it, even if the stage left the rocket without using all of the fuel and hit the ground. Another idea was that maybe it was a warhead that exploded of a rocket or a missile, and from a very big rocket, probably ballistical one. Well, you can imagine that maybe by some chance there was incidental launch of a missile, and it fell in this area, and maybe somebody was shooting missiles as a training exercise from the Pacific Ocean, and it fell in the Khabarovsk taiga, or boreal forest. Well, usually such testing from the Pacific Ocean are done without using warheads. They're not stupid. So that may not be the case, but none of the None of the reports talked about the level of radiation. Did anybody study it? And if so, why isn't this information available? Well, it looks to people in Russia, to those who study this, that the media is looking to ways to cover up the footprints, so to say, of what had happened. Basically any hypothesis right now should not be discarded. Of course, if there was a nuclear explosion in the taiga, the seismic stations would have recorded it. But what if it was TNT? But could a TNT warhead cause such destruction? Even the most powerful one. Well, here's what's interesting. One of the most powerful non-nuclear bombs in Russia is the so-called FAB 9000, which weighs 9.4 tons. From modern airplanes that can carry it aboard, it would be only Russian Tu-160 and Tu-22 M3. And what's interesting is not far from that area, in the Amursk region, there is the so-called Air Force Base Ukrainka. And there are powerful Russian airplanes like Tu-95, but also Tu-22 M3, which land there. And there is another base with this powerful aircraft located in the Irkutsk region. So maybe one of them lost a missile. But who would take a 9.4 ton for testing flights? And there was a specialist from the Institute of Russian Defense Ministry, and he said that actually it could have been a result of the explosion of AVB-PM. What it is, it's one of the newest developments of the Russian army. Its complete name is the aviation bomb of the highest degree of power, but most likely the best way is to describe it as the bomb of the most voluminous explosion capability. This is the so-called vacuum bomb, which has been mentioned in the Russian media as the most powerful non-nuclear warhead. It weighs 7.5 ton and it has the power of 44 ton of explosion. So this could be it, but nobody really knows much about this bomb after September of 2007, when reports came out about the test of this bomb. But why would Russian military would test such an explosion in the delta of the river, which works for the hydroelectrical station? But let's say this explosion came from outside the Russian borders. Something flew in from the outside of the Russian borders. Okay, but if that is the case, how would the Russian anti-aircraft system not find it, not detect it? So that's something else. But there are more, I would say, hypotheses. There are more questions, but there's very little real information, almost zero. And the official government hypothesis makes some of the researchers laugh, really laugh. The specialists from the Institute of Ecological and Water Problems of the Far East branch of the Russian Academy of Sciences described it as a sudden landslide from the hillside. That's what caused it, and people don't buy it. People just don't buy it. But there is another version or hypothesis, and some of those who study this phenomenon say that no matter how fantastic it looks, but it has every right to exist. It was some gigantic flying apparatus which was using unknown form of energy, which crashed down and fell down on the hillside, and it touched the apex and when the engines of this ship exploded, it created all this mess. And the object itself is now buried after millions of cubic tons of soil. Well, to find out if it's so, somebody has to go actually and do the excavations. Well, that's what apparently the Russian army is doing right now, if we are to believe this hypothesis. But foreigners are actually not now known to be present in the area, and I don't think they'll be allowed. But somebody else, there are other people who think that it was a man-made situation. And people like that don't believe in any extraterrestrials or aliens or anything like that. And they also don't believe in the meteorite hypothesis. And they describe that meteorites do not fly, with the information available that the object came straight from the south. We won't go into all the descriptions as to why. That's not important. As for the Russian rocket that fell down, well, even the recent avant-garde rocket, that cannot be taken as an explanation, because it all flies directly from west to east. To the south, where the object came from, apparently, that's where China is. But it's not too far away, only about 200 or more kilometers. So ballistic missiles don't fly from such a short distance. Even the small ballistic missiles would not come. So it cannot be taken as an explanation. But there is the last one, is that it was a professional job, and somebody went to the extent as to cause the explosion of the air in the area. Some people say, well, it's not so, because all around is the thick taiga boreal forest, and not too far away is actually the hydroelectrical station, and so forth and so forth. Nevertheless, there are people who believe in this idea, and they mentioned that not too far away from that area, about 70 kilometers, is another settlement called Tirma, with the railroad station, and that, straight to the Bureya area, River Tirma flows, so to say, and the rubber boats with a small motor is a very simple means to reach the site and to cause the explosion. So such idea exists too. And interesting, as for the missiles, well, there are those who believe it was in the avant-garde by the Zircon Russian missile. And they mentioned that Zircon was actually launched on December 10. But avant-garde on the 26th of December was launched to take away attention from those who become very curious about what has happened. So the ultimate, as of what we know today, is that the Russian media apparently is not printing all the news stories that it should. There may be a cover-up, and it's possible that it was maybe a terrorist attack, maybe UFO or an extraterrestrial ship that fell down, but most likely not a meteorite. If there is anything else interesting, we'll find out, and I'll keep you informed. Thank you.